Good morning and welcome to Smart Impressions. I'm Rachel here connecting people, unlocking businesses relationship one business at a time. And today's show is going to be really interesting if you are looking into entering the Middle East market. If you've thought about it, you consider it, or even if you're trying to dabble with it now and you don't know where to start, our guest today is going to answer all those questions for you and more. So welcome to the show, Corina Goetz, the founder of StarCat. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
I'm so happy to see another woman in this space in the Middle East, really kind of helping businesses enter into this market because it can be very daunting for people. I'm sure you have a ton of stories of customers that you're helping right now and what their current challenges are in entering this market, right?
Yes, most definitely. I think there's so many questions that people have, where do I get started? What do I even say? Specifically, if they are woman in business, sometimes they also don't really want to ask the man that they're working with because, they don't want to show that maybe they don't have the enough information and they're not confident enough because it is, at the end of the day, it's a very different culture. And the culture requires a lot of different nuances. And what is really interesting with the Gulf is also that, for example, the United Arab Emirates is very different from Saudi, it's very different from Qatar, it's very different from Oman. So they all have different nuances that, is very important as a business to understand, and also to understand how to start building relationships. And I know you talk a lot about relationships and communication, Rachel, right?
Absolutely. I think the crux of all humanity. We desire it. And the digital world is coming in and trying to take away it's trying to take it away from so many of us. And it's really affecting those relationships. So how do you think relationships really need to be prioritized in this part of the region from your experience?
I mean, of course, I think nothing can really beat one-on-one conversations, 100%. However, I would say that social media and digital has given us a platform to stay connected even when we're not in the region. And I think that's what is very different from, let's say, 15, 20 years ago when we didn't have that. Because we couldn't just reach the CEO or maybe like a royal at the touch of a button. And now we can because we have these social media platforms that really give us this ability to connect even further. And not only that, I think the companies that really understand how to leverage this and stay top of mind of these kind of local clients, they are the ones that will go really far and will make the most business because people will remember them. And it's not just a case you go to the region 2, 3, 4 times a year and then you forget about it. You have to kind of keep working on these relationships. And that's where I think social media, digital is such an amazing tool. I think it's really opened up. I know a lot of people say, oh my God, but we're just glued to our phones all the time. But I think there's so many great ways that we can leverage this also for our business and working on these relationships that really makes a big, big difference.
I have to agree with you 900% because it's about leveraging them in the proper way for your business. And so when you're talking to your clients, what are you telling them and what platforms are really the way for them to enter into the Middle East market? What's really working here? What do you see that, they should really prioritize?
I mean, I would definitely say the number one platform is WhatsApp. And I know that maybe sometimes doesn't really count as a social media platform as such. However, WhatsApp in recent years has brought out a lot of features that you can utilize, like you could do stories on Instagram or, these sort of stories on Snapchat. So I would say WhatsApp for me is the number one. I think in the region, what is also very hot is YouTube for sure. And then I think when you look at some of the other social medias, I think it depends again what your company is, what your product is. If it's something that is very visual, then of course Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok even is the way to go. But I think if you're trying to do more and reach more professionals, I would say LinkedIn is your secret weapon. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we're streaming here on LinkedIn. I love it so much. I mean, you're right. It's something that it's a secret weapon that in this region, it's off, a lot more than it was 10 years ago, but it's not going anywhere. And there's no one else competing against them, right? So there's nowhere else to go. If you're looking to connect professionally by job title, by region, this is the only way. It's a go-to, and really leveraging it. But you're right. I mean, there's no doubt. I love that you're saying WhatsApp, because Americans won't see that value because we don't use that in America per se. But in the Middle East region, that's a real strong tool for so many professionals to connect with. And that's just one of the ways to really build that connection. So what are some of the other areas where people are maybe hesitant or scared or concerned of entering into this region? Because I know it's kind of like, it's like that taboo. There's so many places around the world that go, I've heard of it, and really relying on the Emirates advertising to drive that picture in their head, but you're talking about nitty gritty business professionals driving sales. What kind of hesitations do you have?
I think, the biggest hesitation, I think, is fear. And that fear comes very much from what they know. And from what people know let's say in the US, that is also geographically so removed from the Middle East, but also similar in Europe. You see a similar trend, that you get these sort of like clickbaity stories that are saying, oh my God, the footballers' wives are having such a hard time in Saudi, like they can't even get their nails done. And I'm thinking, where have they been? Because there's plenty of places to live a really good life and actually have a lot of great amenities. And so it's very much driven by this. And of course, if you don't see an alternative viewpoint, you will never know any different. And I think with Saudi specifically, what is so interesting is that Saudi in the last few years has changed so rapidly that people just can't keep up. They remember what it was 15 years ago, but it's not like that anymore. But maybe they haven't been, or they don't know anybody who's been, and they just remember what they heard 10, 15 years ago. And it's like, it's such a fascinating story. I mean, I see that. I mean, like, I work in this field and I travel a lot. And even in my immediate family, I get questions like this. So for example, before I came to Dubai on this trip, I was actually in Taif, which is close to Jeddah, which is a really beautiful region in Saudi where they have roses, and they have a rose festival and lots of other great things. So my dad said to me, you're going to where? And you're doing what? And what do you mean there's roses? I never heard about this. I thought Saudi was just desert. And I'm like, you should know better, because I keep telling you this stuff all the time. But that kind of, like, to me, sums it up. I think people just don't know enough. And because there wasn't that much advertising, which of course is changing now, but it will take time, to reach the mainstream, I'd say.
Cool. Well, I know that you specialize in that Saudi region, right? Not just the GCC, the Middle East in general. I mean, a big playing ground, lots of different cultures. Every country has their own nuances of how to get in. But what are some of the fascinating stuff that you found in Saudi Arabia specifically? Because I do find with the amount of speed that's transitioning that country alone, there's new things happening almost every day.
I mean, first of all, I think the diversity of what they have to offer for, like, let's say, just a tourist, if you look at it just purely from a tourist angle, there's so many different things. They have the Red Sea, which is beautiful, and it hadn't been developed for tourism, so it's all like pristine, and you have the coral reefs, and everything is still as you cannot find it in the Maldives anymore, because it's already been spoiled a little bit by tourism. So they have all of this. Then you have a lot of history. You have a lot of history when you go to places like Al Ula. You look at places in Riyadh, for example, Diriyah, which is the birthplace of Saudi. So you have all of these. But what is most intriguing is that you have so many entrepreneurs, and especially you have so many women entrepreneurs. And I think that's really exciting, because you have women entrepreneurs that have very interesting niches as well. Of course, I have a really great friend who does beautiful abayas, but recently I was listening to a podcast, which is one of the only podcasts that is recorded in Saudi that is actually in English. And there was a lady on there saying she was a divorce coach. And I was like, wow, like, who would have thought that kind of stuff? So sometimes it's very specific, and sometimes it's very niche. And I think the new generation has a lot more to offer, and I think that's what a lot of people don't know. I think a lot of business people also underestimate the importance of digital, and we touched on this a little bit, but this is even more important when you know that 63% of the Saudi population is under 35. So of course they're going to live on digital, and that's where it's all going to happen. So you need to get your digital strategy right, and it can't just be I'm just going to go and I think everything's going to happen. I think everything has to come full circle, and you have to have a really good strategy to make it work, and of course find out what they really want to achieve, or what does the country want to achieve, and how can you fit with your service or product within this, because there's so much opportunity, and it's not just one industry, like it's everywhere.
So do you specialize in one specific industry, or are you across the board?
No, not at all. Not at all, because I get questions all the time, like what industries are really prominent. And I think a lot of the things that I teach my client can be applied cross industry. It's like how you build really great relationships, what the country wants to achieve. And yes, of course, there's nuances to different industries, but I think you have to understand the overall vision 2030, which then leads on to further visions. And you have to then look, where can I fit in with my expertise? But you need to have a general idea of what's going on, and what really matters to people. So you can really work, bring your business there accordingly, and really target the right kind of projects, the right kind of people, the right kind of entrepreneurs. And that's also how you then find the right kind of connections on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Well, there's no doubt you've been here for this region about how long?
Well, I'm based in London. I'm not based in the region, but I have worked with the whole Gulf region for sort of 20 plus years. And I've seen what Saudi used to be like before they opened up a lot more. And that's why I can empathize with a lot of people that have that image, because I've been there. I've seen it. I've made all the mistakes, when I first went there, and I had nobody there to teach me all of this kind of stuff. And that's exactly what I provide, just a shortcut so you can get to where you want to go quicker.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, there's no doubt 20 years is a good, amount of time to say that you know what you're doing, especially you were there before the women were even able to drive. And even since then, it's skyrocketed the progression of just the culture, the region, and the numbers are there. The people are there. We're talking about 9 million people in Riyadh alone, right? Somewhere in that proximity. That's a huge number of people to get. And I love that you're offering services to try to help understand the market, so any business can go into that market being wiser, smarter, and basically being able to penetrate it faster. So it's amazing what you're doing. Now, we only have 15 minutes here, and I want to leave our listeners, which are all about getting into sales. I know so many people even working in Dubai or going into Saudi. They're focusing their sales targets in Saudi. What are the 3 ways that you think they should be doing it and prioritizing the way they make connections in this region?
I think, first of all, I think when you make connections, you need to make sure you work on these relationships, and you don't just work on the relationships when you want to make a sale. You have to, you have to nurture them. So it's not always a quick buck that you go, you present, and then the deal is done. It doesn't work like this. People, I think, in Saudi also, they want to get to know you. Who are you as a person? What are your values? So you may need to open up a little bit, and like I said, you have to work on the relationship. And there's great ways of doing that. So, for example, now in June there's Eid al-Adha coming, which is the second thing, is to be aware of what matters to them, and that's a really great way of leveraging and building up a really strong relationship, that you reach out to people when things happen that are important to them. So next one, like I said, is Eid al-Adha in June. So that's a really good opportunity, to reach back out, open up a conversation, not about a sale, just purely about them. So, and then of course, the third thing is, I think that you need to understand what is really, really important to them. Aside from the holidays, like what does the country want to do, what they want to achieve? Because a lot of the young Saudis, for example, also identify with, Vision 2030 and where they want to go and what they want to achieve. And I think sometimes it's very easy to dismiss some of these big goals as oh, they're just like shiny object. And but people are very passionate about this. And this is what I've seen time and time and time again. You speak to people and they're proud of their country and they're really so happy when something works out. So I think, that's the kind of message you have to give, that you understand and you're willing to support. And so it's all, I think, you have to make it about them, right? Because sales is
Yeah.
all about the other person. It's not about you. It's not about your product. It's all about what you can do for the other people and how your product or your service can actually help serve them, make that vision come to life.
Oh, Corina, you got good stuff right there. I know we can go on forever because you and I are talking the same language, girl. Whether it's connecting just to get into a relationship, it's about converting for sales conversions at the future, and really seeing some value there. They all start with the same steps, and it's about this connection. So I can't thank you enough for sharing your tips and tricks of how to work with the Middle East more effectively for business relationships. So thank you, thank you, thank you for coming in and sharing today.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. I love the conversation. If you found it valuable, reach out to Corina. She's the one who's going to give you all the insight you need to enter into these markets in this region and really build your successful relationships for tomorrow. So I love it. I hope you found it as much value as I did, and I can't wait to see you next week. So have a fabulous and successful day. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to make those smart impressions. Bye-bye.